You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show. It's Friday, November 27th, 2020, the day after Thanksgiving. We're all buzzed with our tryptophan meals and so forth. And we have a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. And when we do open up the phone lines, taking your phone calls here. Now, this is not only Friday, it's Black Friday, which sounds so evil. And apparently there is a lot of shopping activity out there, despite all of these CDC warnings that there will be a double whammy following Thanksgiving travel and Black Friday shopping for virus spread. Now, apparently a lot more shopping is being done online and less in the retail. That's good for the economy as a whole. But unfortunately for the brick and mortar retail establishments, it's not a good sign here because they rely on the Christmas shopping season to be in the black for the year. And so we're going to see a lot of, as we have in the last few years. After January 1, we'll be seeing retail outlets simply going out of business here. So anyway, yesterday was Thanksgiving, and we were all out there celebrating. And Claire and I went over to some family and had a big old turkey there. And of course, that's our revenge here because, as you know, the birds are the last surviving dinosaurs. And so we eat turkey on Thanksgiving as revenge for long ago when their ancestors were eating our ancestors. And that felt really kind of good here. Over in Portland, however, a little bit of a different celebration. Apparently, rioters in Portland were out there causing thousands of dollars in damage. They were out there dressed in black clothing, smashing windows along Hawthorne Street in the early hours of November 26th. And apparently at least 10 businesses in the area were targeted. So the rioters are still out there. So let's get on into this issue of election fraud and where's the election going. It's still very much up in the air. More information keeps coming out all the time. Underscoring that this election was stolen. And by the way, everybody there at Thanksgiving was talking about how appalled they were at how this has all gone down. And during our What Are We Thankful For roundtable, I said, well, I'm thankful we have honest and fair elections. And of course, they all laughed. So we have this article over from revolver.news, which is a good news source, I might add here. And it's basically talking about the definitive case proving that Donald Trump actually won the election. And apparently this is a new analysis. And basically it goes after Joe Biden's supposed comeback in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. And it flags 4 specific vote dumps that were all for Biden or mostly for Biden that were critical to his so-called victory in these states. And it shows that these ratios of Biden votes to Trump votes were profoundly anomalous when compared to other dumps in those states and virtually every other vote dump across the country. So they're basically saying that Joe Biden's victory was not legitimate and it can, in fact, be proven. It already has. I mean, they've got tons of affidavits from polling workers who just saw all this kind of stuff. Now, pardon me. Apparently, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution predicted potential voter fraud in Georgia with its scathing rebuke of the new Dominion voting system's vulnerabilities. This was back on October 23rd, but Georgia ignored it, according to presidential political strategist Dick Morris over on Newsmax TV. So the Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran the story 11 days before election days, warning that Georgia's new electronic voting system was vulnerable to cyber attacks that could cause chaos at the polls or manipulate the results. And so they were warned and did nothing. Now, there are Republicans and the Trump campaign are demanding in Georgia that signature matching be a major part of the recount the president filed for in Georgia, where Biden beat him by less than 0.5 percentage point. But the Secretary of State is saying it's impossible because of the rules they have to supposedly protect voter privacy. Ballots in Georgia are separated from their outer envelopes where the signature is after they're initially verified. So that makes it impossible to reconnect the ballots to their envelopes and impossible to do signature rematching after ballots are counted. Now, this whole thing about voter privacy, I think, is a means to make vote fraud easier, because I'm not ashamed of who I vote for. You know, anybody who talks to me knows which candidates, which judges, which dog catchers, and so forth I'm voting for. So this whole idea that it all has to be sorry, I had to respond to a message in the little magic window I have that communicates with Mike in the control room here. So I think this whole obsession with voter privacy, it's to try and make vote fraud a little bit easier, as it obviously did in Georgia. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a congresswoman-elect, Georgia Republican, and she's convinced Trump did win Georgia, even though the state has certified for Biden. And again, we're having a lot of people coming on out and saying they don't believe the Biden win. Apparently, up in Wisconsin, the Amistad Project has filed an emergency lawsuit last Tuesday to block the state of Wisconsin's election certification. And apparently, the petition was signed with the Wisconsin Supreme Court, challenging the state's unofficial results in the 2020 election, which gave Joe Biden a margin of just 20,000 votes over Donald Trump. And apparently, the Amistad Project is saying they have identified over 150,000 potentially fraudulent votes in Wisconsin, more than enough to call into question the validity of the reported election results. So again, this stuff just keeps coming on out, drip by drip. And here's another story. This one came out from naturalnews.com. Apparently, a Democratic operative brought fraudulent Dominion voting machines to Michigan. And apparently, this is a female Democrat and a personal friend of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So, you know, these Dominion machines continue to be a big problem for this whole election. Everybody knows they're fraudulent. The Atlanta Journal was warning about it here. Now, over in Pennsylvania, and we reported on this earlier in the week, the appeals court judge has ordered officials to halt any further steps towards certifying the election results showing Biden won. Now, Governor Tom Wolf is trying to fight the ruling, and Donald Trump, of course, continues to tweet about the fraud over there. Now, apparently, a poll watcher from Pennsylvania's Delaware County told a Senate GOP Policy Committee hearing in Gettysburg on November 25th that they witnessed a range of Election Day irregularities, including 47 USB cards that went missing. Now, those USB cards are used to store subtotals of the votes. So Greg Steinstrom, who's besides being a poll watcher, he's an expert in security fraud, told the hearing that he witnessed a number of chain of custody violations, including around the mail-in ballots, the balance of votes from drop boxes, and the handling of the USB card flash drives, all of which he said broke rules defined by the Delaware County Board of Elections and the Election Process Review. Stenstrom said they didn't follow one. It shocked me that this could even happen. Well, it's shocking to us too here. All right, there's been another analysis by National File that demonstrates that independently monitored audits of 2020 mail-in and absentee ballots could easily flip the 2020 election to President Trump. And if honest audits rejected absentee and mail-in ballots at the same rate as they did in 2018, This would entirely eliminate Biden's margin of victory in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Okay, apparently up in Detroit, okay, more suspicious absentee data. Apparently 36% of absentee ballots returned were from people who were not listed as being sent an absentee ballot. So where did these blank absentee ballots come from? There's a big mystery there. Getting on back to Pennsylvania, little side note here. Apparently, the governor of Pennsylvania demanded the Dominion machines by executive fiat. It was never voted on by the legislature. Nobody had anything to say about it other than the governor saying you will use these Dominion voting machines, which have since been demonstrated to be problematic here. All righty, we're seeing more of the brown shirt mentality out there. The Trump lawyer Jenna Ellis says she's received hundreds of threats, including anonymous phone calls in recent days, including all hours of the day and night, hundreds of digital messages and so forth, and saying that they're calling her cell number. She doesn't know how they got that. But they are waking her up in the middle of the night, and she's having to turn her phone off here. Now, apparently, a lot of states switched over to these Dominion voting machines just for this election. And apparently, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars in these numerous swing states before the 2020 election. And remember, going on back to that director of security for Dominion openly bragging that he had fixed those machines so that Trump could not win. Now, here's an interesting little insight from Blabber Buzz. According to a new Newsmax McLaughlin and Associates poll released just yesterday, more than 2/3 of the nation say it is fair for Donald Trump to ask for a recount in all the key states. 67% of likely voters back the recounts. Okay, so who was actually voting for Biden if you have this many people saying a recount is necessary? All righty, apparently actor Scott Baio has echoed the opinion of many conservatives and voters for Donald Trump on Newsmax TV on Wednesday, fearing the election was stolen and hoping that some brave judges will stop it. So Baio was on American Agenda, and he said, I'm very frustrated. They're trying to steal it, and hopefully we can stop it. I'm not a conspiracy nut. I try to be a realistic guy, and I'm just watching the live hearings by GOP legislators in Pennsylvania, and it's pretty damning stuff what is going on. Now, I actually worked with Scott on this very forgettable film called Skate Town, USA, and he's a pretty straight shooting guy, as I recall him. It was a while ago here. All righty, Sidney Powell has filed a lawsuit in Georgia. She's making 30 allegations of electoral fraud and other illegal and irregular activities. The one that I question her on is she's trying to lay the blame on the election fraud on Iran and China. And it's kind of making me wonder if she is sort of the straw man that is going to get knocked down to derail the efforts by the other Trump legal team. And this, in fact, may be one of the reasons why the Trump legal team separated from her. Lynn Wood has outed a mysterious Georgia operative, Gabe Sterling, and there's now a new video that shows him admitting he helped set up these bogus drop boxes and promoted far-left activists as absentee ballot counters. So they were rigging the election at all levels here. Now, getting on back to the Georgia lawsuit, apparently one of the witnesses there testified about the use of a different type of paper for counterfeit ballots. Remember, we were saying more absentee ballots were returned in Detroit than had actually been requested. And so apparently the watermark on these bogus ballots is solid gray instead of transparent, and 100% of these bogus ballots were for Joe Biden. So it keeps on moving forward here. Now, do you remember back when the election was happening, there were stories about this water break in Georgia, which forced everybody to evacuate the counting area. Well, it turns out it was just a leaking toilet. They haven't even filed a work order to get it fixed here. And apparently video of the counting area caught an unsupervised election worker messing with the voting machines. It was all caught on video. I mean, the evidence just keeps piling on up that this was the greatest election theft in U.S. history. Over in Fulton County, Georgia, all 900 military ballots went to Joe Biden. Now, that is just way beyond statistical possibility. Trump won Georgia by 5 points in 2016. And in 2020, Trump smashed the record for most votes ever for a sitting U.S. president here. And yet in these swing states, the Democrats dropped massive numbers of Biden-only votes in the middle of the night after announcing they were shutting down counting for some obscure reason. And now they're out there still trying to push this idea that Biden, who couldn't get anybody to show up at his rallies, that he won this election here. And now Lynn Wood was also on Newsmax TV. Apparently she was there on Wednesday. He was there on Wednesday, my mistake. He has filed an appeal with the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn Georgia's election results based on the claim that the Georgia Secretary of State unilaterally and unconstitutionally changed the election rules. Now, Wood, who famously represented Richard Jewell, who was wrongfully accused in the Atlanta Olympic Park bombings in '96, said he is seeking to void the election results and have the matter turned over to the Georgia legislature. Interestingly enough, Twitter has now blocked the URL of Sidney Powell's website, defendingtherepublic.org. Apparently, just before we went to airtime, they unblocked it, saying it was a mistake. But there was a huge, huge backlash on social media about this. Twitter has also banned the campaign account of the Pennsylvania senator that organized the Gettysburg election hearing. And apparently now Twitter is now warning you away from witness testimony at the public hearings. They don't want you to see what's going on. They don't want you to decide for yourself. That's what's really going on here. Out in Nevada, a judge has agreed to hear the evidence of illegal voting from the Trump campaign. And for the first time in this whole tragic story of the election, a state court has granted Republicans in Nevada to the ability to present their case of widespread illegal balloting and to depose up to 15 people who know what went down in Clark County. So this is really big news. Remember, we reported earlier in the week there were more votes than voters in at least one Nevada county. Rudy Giuliani is out there saying that the Trump may have actually won Virginia. He's saying that's another battle. And, possibly after this is all over, they'll go back and look at it. But again, crooked election, not a question. Everybody knows it here. Apparently, there was in one of the lesser races, this was between Democratic Representative Anthony Brindisi and rival Republican Claudia Tenney. And apparently they've discovered mail-in ballots cast by dead voters. And this is down in Madison County. And they're trying to pursue that as well. I mean, we've had whole cemeteries voting in this election here. All righty, Braden hope I pronounced this correctly, Giacobazzi is talking about systematic harassment of GOP poll challengers at the TCF Center. So the brown shirt behavior, it was going on all along here. Mark Levin, who's a conservative radio host, has thanked the lawyers fighting for Trump. And he went on the attack against know-nothing legal analysts, smearing them and trying to get them disbarred. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through HealthyWorldStore.com.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no work, can't draw no pay, unemployment getting worse.
And welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. And first of all, a heartfelt thanks to everybody out there who has donated. And for those of you who have not yet, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. Please do not send any Thanksgiving leftovers. We already have plenty of our own. So we all, the network will thank you here. This just now came in here. Apparently, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Pennsylvania has now rejected Donald Trump's campaign appeal challenging the state's election results. And basically, this means it's now going to go to the Supreme Court. And so we'll see how that manifests itself next week. Getting on back here, we were talking about the attack on Trump's lawyers, and apparently Congressman Bill Pascrell, Democrat from New Jersey, has filed letters with the legal bar authorities in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New York, and Pennsylvania, seeking the disbarment of Rudy Giuliani and 22 other lawyers representing Donald Trump. And again, it's not enough they're taking away our right to having our own opinions. They're now attacking those lawyers who are still fighting for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the rule of law. And here is an interesting perspective. This came out of Global Research up in Canada, and they do really, really good work. Apparently, they're saying what the 2020 election really is all about is a U.S. color revolution coming home to roost. The United States has been doing this to other countries around the world, and apparently the deep state just decided that now that they were all well practiced up in these other countries, they were going to do it here. Except it's not really going so well because we saw what they're doing here. And I'll share a little insight with you from long ago when I was working my way through college as a professional magician. When you're doing a show and they're enjoying it and everything, your first mistake will be your last, because after that, they're not enjoying the show anymore. They're looking to see if they can spot how you're doing the trick. And that's what happened here. We saw the ace up the sleeve of the deep state. It's called election fraud, and we're going to be looking for it from now on. And getting on back to the brown shirt mentality, apparently Adam Rahuba of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he's a leader of Antifa, and he's out there demanding that if Trump does not concede by Sunday noon, that Antifa is going to block roads in conservative areas, and they will retaliate. He's saying your supporters will not be able to go to work or to the grocery store. We are armed and will retaliate to attempts of vehicular homicide. So yeah, it looks like violence is coming to the streets of America. I don't like it, but it's the opposition that is initiating it here. Now, Trump has already stated that if Biden wins the Electoral College, that he will leave the White House. But he is insisting the election was rigged and stolen from him, and he is continuing the legal fight. Now, of course, the pundits and the Democrats are saying, well, this is Trump effectively conceding. No, it is not. He has not conceded. And so technically, Biden is not the president-elect until after the Electoral College. So we're going to see what happens with that. And again, it's all going to come down to that Supreme Court. Now, Donald Trump is doing some things other than fighting to keep his job here. And apparently on Wednesday, several high-profile members of the Defense Policy Board were fired by the Trump administration. And apparently this included former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, Henry Kissinger, former ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee Jane Harman, former House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, and apparently a few others here. And frankly, Trump should have done that like 3.5 years ago. Okay, now Biden, of course, is out there calling for unity and saying it's a time to heal. But apparently Robert De Niro did not get that memo, and he appears to be calling for a cleansing against all Trump supporters. And, he's a hardcore leftist. We've known that for a lot of years. But he's basically saying something has to be done about all these Republicans still kissing Trump's ring. Well, we're not exactly kissing his ring here. It's just he is the president, whether you like it or not, and he did win in 2016 here. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is out there saying that as long as Trump is pardoning people, that he should consider pardons for Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, and probably a few others as well. I hope Trump will listen, but that remains to be seen. We got to take another break here for commercials. We'll be right back with more political news.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion going on at Republic Broadcasting. This is a fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Born in the city with a silver spoon, great-grandson of the oil tycoon, raised by wolves, thinks he owns the moon, socialist banker to the one-world goons, Davy Rockefeller, chairman of the CFR.
Welcome back to our show here, and checking the email here, I got an interesting note that makes a very, very good point, saying you don't need to match voter signatures with votes. If you have 50,000 non-matching signatures, then you have major vote fraud, and it doesn't matter who got the votes. The election would be invalid and go to the legislature. It's a very, very good point they're making here. Another email, someone could have made a lot of dough doing a remake of Night of the Living Dead. Just put the cameras at the cemeteries at the day of the election. Mike in the control room was saying it's the zombie apocalypse, and that's why we had so many dead people voting in this election. All righty, the media is still playing their usual games here. Oh, that was Dave. Okay, all right, that was David Crucial Nonsense saying it's the zombie apocalypse. Anyway, CNN cut off Jamal Bowman when he started talking about Rahm Emanuel's awful record. They just cut him off, no explanation. Don't want you to hear that. You're not supposed to hear how politicians are crooked and corrupt, Anyway, this is an interesting little development. from uns.com. And it ties in with all that we've been hearing about the war on white people. And it has to do with a piece of legislation called the Breathe Act, which is championed by Representatives Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib. It's basically going to criminalize punishing Black people. And if you get right down to it, it's basically a perpetual get out of jail free card like you would find in Monopoly. Again, we're supposed to all have equal protection under the law here. And they're saying that, Black and brown criminals are going to face much less punishment than white criminals or Asian criminals or who knows who. Okay. Now, apparently, Black Lives Matter activists are calling on the Biden administration to embrace legislation brought forth by the Squad that would abandon the police and empty all the prisons. This is apparently also connected to the Breathe Act. And again, this is a good way to destabilize our entire country and bring more violence and crime to the streets. But then a criminal government begats a criminal nation. All righty there. Let's see. Apparently, there is a little concern. As you know, yesterday there was a Supreme Court decision. It was 5-4 to basically allow churches to continue doing what they're doing, not limit their congregation. The people who run those churches have stated they're an essential service. And this article that came out of Breitbart was saying that we were just one vote away from losing the First Amendment. Because in the First Amendment, it says, first of all, there's a right to peacefully assemble. They're saying the First Amendment has an explicit call for governments to not interfere with how American citizens practice their religion. Well, sort of, kind of, maybe. But what the First Amendment actually says is Congress shall make no laws respecting an institute of religion. And what that means is there's no official state religion because, the founding fathers were only a few generations away from how the war between Catholicism and Protestantism had almost destroyed Great Britain. So that's why that's in there. But it doesn't actually say governments can't interfere with how Americans practice their religion. And certainly in the case of religions that practice animal sacrifice, there are, in fact, laws in that place. But it was a rather narrow call, 5-4 here. All right, getting into COVID-19, which is still out there, and everybody's nattering and gromishing about that here. England is back in lockdown, and people are being told they have to stay at home other than for essential reasons, such as school or work. And they're being told refrain from meeting people they do not live with. Restaurants, pubs, gyms, and non-essential shops are also closed. Now, they're going to review these decisions on December 2nd with the option of being extended. And apparently, Patrick Vallance, the UK's chief scientific advisor, has said you should not rule out a digital Christmas. And so there's a lot of concern that just as Thanksgiving was disrupted by COVID-19 and the lockdowns and the masks and all the rest of it, the same thing is going to happen for Christmas as well. Now, here is a warning. This is coming out of Health and Money News, basically talking about the mRNA vaccines. And there's concern that these RNA vaccines could cause genetic damage. And apparently, they intervene directly in the genetic material of the patient. That's you. These vaccines alter your genes. And this was something that was forbidden and up until recently considered a criminal act. And unfortunately, if these mRNA vaccines alter your genetic material, there's no going back. There's no reset button. There's no, save a restore point on the human body here. Now, Trump is saying the COVID vaccines will start going out next week. and basically spent some time with U.S. troops bragging about his record. I think it's a little late for that. He's still bragging about the record stock market high this week, while we have record numbers of Americans who are homeless and hungry. Now, interestingly enough, over at AstraZeneca, they've had a little bit of a whoopsie, because apparently some of the people in their test group were only given a half dosage of the trial vaccine. And when you take that into account, the claimed 90% success rate drops to just 60%. And so they're going to run a whole new vaccine trial. So their vaccine will now not be out anytime soon. Now, there is a new peer-reviewed study. It's going to be published in the International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents next month. And it basically found that there were 84% fewer hospitalizations for patients who were treated with hydroxychloroquine. So it turns out Donald Trump was right about that one. And apparently, this study concluded that low-dose hydroxychloroquine combined with zinc and azithromycin is an effective therapeutic approach to COVID-19. So they can cure it. They can cure it. Okay. I mean, we're with all the lockdowns and the masks and all the rest of it, they're acting like we've got Ebola racing across the country instead of this rather low mortality flu-like illness here. Now, the CDC is out there, and they've jumped the shark with this one. They're calling for isolation camps as part of a shielding plan. And this plan is that U.S. citizens and residents who are deemed high risk for COVID-19 will be forcibly removed from their families and homes and involuntarily isolated in guarded camps. Now, this is very, very scary. And the part that really worries me is all of this infrastructure for these isolation camps and contact tracing through your cell phone. It's not going to go away. If COVID-19 goes away, they'll keep the contact tracing to fight the war on terror or such. I mean, it's very scary stuff that's out there right now. Now, Delta Airlines is getting ready to launch a new rapid testing system that will allow U.S. travelers to go from Atlanta to Rome without having to quarantine on arrival or on return. And apparently they're using a testing system that the Mayo Clinic says leaves only a 1 in a million chance of infection on a flight that is 60% full. Now, somebody's already done a study of the ventilation systems on commercial airliners, and they filter that air a lot. And they discovered that really you are much less likely to contract COVID-19 on a commercial jet than you are just walking out the streets of your town here. Now, here's a little interesting aspect here. Out in California, they have exempted the Hollywood movie studios from the COVID lockdowns and restrictions. This is coming from California Governor Newsom, and he's exempted the entire industry, citing the movie-making business as essential workers. Now, I worked in Hollywood for a lot of years. I question that they're an essential service. I mean, I'm getting tired of the endless reruns on TV because of the shutdown of film and TV production that we've already seen. But I don't consider them an essential service unless, of course, they are being co-opted to propagandize the American people, in which case, yes, it's certainly essential services from the government's point of view. Now, out in China, this gets back to the contact tracing. Communist China is saying all humans should be marked and tracked to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And again, it basically suggests that post-COVID, that all citizens everywhere are going to be marked and tracked to make sure you're not talking to really people you should not be talking to, like Michael Rivero and so forth here. Now, over in Great Britain, London is being spared from the toughest regional restrictions, but Manchester and Birmingham are full-blown onto the Tier 3 lockdown. And apparently next Wednesday, the national lockdown will be replaced with a tiered system across all of England. And so that's getting a little bit ugly there. Boris Johnson is admitting the brutal tiers are frustrating for low infection areas, but insists the rules must be kept simple. But he's facing a huge Tory revolt with demands of a rethink prior to Christmas. And I hope the Tories certainly win on that one, because it's really gone on way too long for this. Again, the mortality numbers for these for the illness are way down. We know that the numbers of cases are inflated. There were financial incentives to medical establishments to say that everything was a COVID case, even when it wasn't. We know that those tests they've been using have a high rate of false positives. It's a big illusion. It really is a big hoax. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't out there dying of a virus that is making the rounds, but no more than you have in the normal seasonal flu. And the normal seasonal flu appears to have simply not shown up this year. They're not even keeping track of it anymore over at the CDC, which kind of makes me wonder if this COVID-19 really was just another form of seasonal flu. So getting on back to Great Britain, apparently Boris Johnson is saying the lockdown could last another year. And he keeps hitting that phrase, the hard winter coming, and saying that there may be repeated vaccinations necessary to conquer this illness. And again, how hard they're forcing the vaccination just makes me very worried. Again, thinking back to what happened in 1976 with the swine flu vaccination campaign. That was mandated and then called off after about 25% of America had received the shot. When it came out, the shot was killing more people than the swine flu itself. Now, up in Toronto, Adam Skelly of Adamson Barbecue has now been arrested and locked up by Toronto police. And they basically went into a restaurant with 50 police. It was a SWAT-style raid, including mounted police. And, you know, this is the sort of thing they would do for a riot, except it was just hundreds of peaceful citizens trying to buy a sandwich. Turning to the international news here, Turkish President Erdogan has pledged that Turkey will continue to support Libya's United Nations recognized government during closed-door talks in Istanbul. And we don't know what's going to happen there, because apparently there's a little confusion over there, because apparently German commandos intercepted and raided a Turkish ship bound for Libya. And apparently this happened last Sunday. You know, in a video shared by Russia Today, the German forces are seen approaching the vessel with a warship and helicopters, and then boarding the ship to search it for its contents. Now, this story is just now happening. Apparently, the chief nuclear scientist in Iran has been assassinated. His car was bombed, and then 5 gunmen got on out and filled it full of bullets to make sure that he was dead. But this was their top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Farizadeh, and was assassinated in Damavand, east of Tehran. He was apparently accompanied by a bodyguard, and according to Iran Front Page News, their scientist was killed by shooting, but before the shootout, his car had been stopped with an explosion at Mustafa Khomeini Boulevard. Several others were also killed in the explosion, but they have yet to be identified. Now, Iran is blaming Israel and the U.S. for the assassination of the top nuclear scientist, and saying that this is an attempt to provoke them into a full-blown war. Remember, we've been talking about some kind of false flag or something to get this war going. And probably the thinking is that Iran struck back with attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq following the assassination of Soleimani. And so they're probably hoping that Iran is going to also react to this, and then that attack will be the excuse to launch a full-blown attack into Iran, send in the bombers, and so forth and so on. Over in Russia, They have successfully tested a new missile capable of destroying Western satellites in orbit. Apparently, it travels at something like 9,000 miles an hour, just, blazingly fast. And apparently, they've tested a second weapon that will reach U.S. cities in the event of a nuclear war, which unfortunately is starting to look more and more likely somewhere down the road. Hungary is still out there pushing these anti-European Union, anti-Soros ads amid EPP threats to exclude Orban's party from the European Union. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be back with more news after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Is your property a financial burden and causing you grief? Have you tried to sell but can't find buyers? Or are you just too busy to sell your property? Don't worry, we have the right solution for you. We buy properties as is, with cash, close in 30 days, and pay all closing costs. Our service is ideal for property owners who are in pre-foreclosure, have high-end repair costs, experiencing financial hardship, going through costly divorces, are relocating, need cash for retirement, suffering family loss, or have tax liens. Whatever your situation may be, we can help you sell your property and get the money you need. If you own a single-family home or multiple family units, call us for a free consultation at 888-910-1037. That's 888-910-1037. Or visit our website at cashingproperty.com. That's cashingproperty.com. Sell your property fast and leave all your worries behind.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry, because we are offering $200 off on the new Easy 4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too. Ease Off LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
Welcome back to our show here. We're going to take a few phone calls before it's time for the lovely Lady Claire, and we're going to start with Melissa in Maryland. Hello, Melissa. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi there. Good afternoon. I don't know whether you're willing to entertain this or not, but I'll go ahead and ask. I do wonder how what has happened within the last couple of months is going to be able to repeat itself in 4 years, because I, for one, would like to see the progress that has been made retained and for the country not to regress. And I just wonder which candidate is going to be able to pull it off next time around, and also have a network in place to be able to observe the accurate election results. So it's kind of putting it on the radar screen. But do you have anything to say about that? Because we have to be able to repeat and retain what we've done.
Well, if Trump is able to pull off a Supreme Court victory and retain his office, I am sure that he is going to be taking a good hard look at that election system and doing everything he can to restore us to honest, verifiable elections. If Biden takes office, it's an absolute guarantee the Democrats are going to keep this vote fraud machine in place and make it even more robust and harder to detect. And we'll have nothing but Democratic Congresses and Democratic presidents from now on. Yes, they will undo a lot of the good that was done for the last 4 years. I mean, you see what the agenda is, drag queen story hour in our schools. I mean, that's, I think, something that probably most Americans are not comfortable with around their children.
Okay, well, it's just something that we have to keep an eye on, because, I mean, what happens, through January is not the end of it. We have to stay on top of it so that, we can, in 4 years from now, we're not, it's just something we have to stay on top of and not, well, you follow what I'm saying.
I follow what you're saying.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. We're going to switch over to Kevin in West Virginia. Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Mr. Mike. I have a couple of things on my mind. My first one, when you were talking about the Antifa leader up in Pittsburgh, I'm sorry, but that's straight up terrorism. Why hasn't this guy been arrested for what he's saying? Why? I guess I can't say that statement on air, but come on. This is just blatant terrorism, what this guy's talking about. The next thing that I wanted to say, you caught my attention when you were talking about these COVID camps, because I have a little theory on these COVID camps. And,
yes,
you remember the French Revolution, they brought the guillotines in, and I don't think the means of execution this time, I think, are going to be the ventilators. I think they're going to use COVID as an excuse to disappear the political dissidents in the middle of the night, and they're going to use the ventilators, shove them down your throat, and blow up your lungs. I think that's
entirely possible. It's entirely possible. It would certainly help them maintain the fear-mongering around COVID. All right, we got to take a break here for station identification, and when we come on back, we'll have the lovely Lady Claire with us.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and the new app, Koshertify, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out thekosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Co-Certified app can make a huge difference for your future.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We're going to close the phone lines for a little while here. And if you're watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire, who always, joins us on hour 2 of our Fridays here with her unique perspective on the world. So, Claire, what do you have for us?
Well, I know that you've covered it in the first hour, but Cuomo's response to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on the fact that the state could not shut down a church or synagogue.
Okay.
But I have to wonder, Mike, has anyone in Cuomo's administration actually crunched the real numbers on mortality? Because I did this with a computer on my iPhone yesterday. And what happens if you allegedly divide the number of allegedly documented deaths in the U.S., which is set at 262,177,000 so far, and divide it by the actual numbers of alleged infections of the illness, which are right now about 12,772,721, the result my cell phone calculator gave me on this, and Mike, I ran the numbers like 2-3 times to make sure that what I was seeing was actually the real mathematical result.
Yep.
And that result is, wait for it, 0.020526332.
Basically 2%.
Yeah.
Just like the seasonal flu.
I mean, come on. And what I think needs to be asked by our alleged reporters, and apparently no one has the, I'm going to have to say this carefully because this is live radio.
Yep.
Shall we say the male attributes,
Yes.
even if they're female, that click when they walk?
You're not going to find that in the corporate media.
No. And the questions that are not being asked are those of, what is your financial position for all of these people hyping COVID-19? What is your financial position in all of these companies invested in getting a vaccine out there the earliest in the United States? But no one seems to ask. This is about money. This is about the money that's going to be made by vaccine manufacturers and also the people who've invested in these companies.
Yes.
I mean, come on. It's an insanely transparent question to me that no one is willing to ask, and they should. They should. I'd like to go over to France.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, well, not at this moment in time.
Okay.
I saw it when it was beautiful before the absolutely amazing, uninterrupted immigration has pushed it on the edge. But apparently, France is pushing for EU sanctions on Turkey over the Mediterranean gas row. And it's pushing for sanctions for fellow member NATO member Turkey. And these sanctions have picked up steam, with Paris expected to propose the punitive action next month with the backing of Greece and Cyprus, but so far, not so much from the other EU governments. It comes after what can only be described as months-long standoff in the Eastern Med over Turkey's hydrocarbon exploration and drilling, which France says is a violation of Cyprus and Greece's territorial waters and exclusive economic zones. Now, Mike,
yes.
How come Erdogan right now seems to believe that he can get away with this?
Well, so far he has, and they just sent a second exploration ship into that area, which is escalating the issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to wonder who is going to tell him, sit him down and say, look, you can't do this. What do you think Putin's skin in the game is here.
I don't know that Putin really sees himself as having much skin in this particular game. It's really more of a European issue. Of course, ever since the failed coup d'etat, Erdogan's been a bit of a loose cannon on deck,
Yeah.
and he's a little bit unpredictable. As we mentioned earlier in the show, he's come down on the side of the United Nations approved government for Libya, meaning the junta. And so that whole area is just in turmoil right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Speaking of the Middle East.
Hang on a second. Before we do that,
okay.
We have a caller on the line I'd like to talk to.
Okay.
And that's Steve Elkins. Steve, welcome to the show. I know you were going to call on in. What's on your mind?
Well, a question of information being true or valid, or what's going on here with these servers in Frankfurt, Germany. Because the way I understood, at least the way it was reported, at least I believe it came from Donald Trump. Correct me if I'm wrong here. He did not clue the CIA in, did not clue the FBI in, because they've been rogue in the past and they've been working against him as a coup. Did he send military over to raid that facility and retrieve those servers and bring them back to the United States?
Well, that appears to be the story right there, and Sidney Powell has also confirmed that as well. And it was, a special operations command in Germany who did it. And apparently, Germany is staying silent over what basically, could be an issue of violation of their sovereignty. It depends on who owned the land on which that building and servers stood. And there was some speculation that it was actually CIA property. And that's why Germany is not really making a big fuss.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good then. That's your smoking gun on this whole case here to go into this program software, and that they seized them in time before they did a massive dump and destroyed information. That's your smoking gun right here.
Yes.
To break it down, to look, say here is when they stopped. Here is when they started to dump the Trump ballots. Here's when they started to add them over to the other side. That's our smoking gun, and I agree with forgetting about the lower courts, which are always probably governed by or controlled by the Democrat Party.
Yes.
In these swing states. So just push it to the Supreme Court. I mean, you got to think about it as a chess player. Donald Trump put Amy Coney Barrett in there for a reason, and now he's going to get to use that conservative vote there in the Supreme Court to say, look at this. This is fraud, and then figure out a solution.
Yeah, I hope the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing, but I can imagine right now with Giuliani heading to the Supreme Court for an expedited hearing next week, that there's a lot of back channel discussion. There's probably a lot of pressure being put on those justices. And earlier in the week, I was joking that probably somebody is sending them copies of the Pelican Brief, anonymously. And so, it's a very, very dangerous time. We know that there's a lot of brown shirt style activity out there, threats from Antifa, threats against the lawyers. I mean, threats of physical harm, threats to their children. And I don't think they're going to stop just because it's the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Hey, last but least, one last thing to mention here. I noticed the Biden camp here is playing a little game here, trying to put the words in Donald Trump's mouth to concede the election, and doing so, he's wanting Trump to talk to him and his Corona task force here about this and that plans, how to take down this virus. And in doing so, if Donald Trump sits down with him and talks, well, that's pretty much saying I'm handing over power. That's a concession right there, conceding the race, and he's smart not to do it. But then Biden's coming back and saying, hundreds of thousands of lives may be in the balance here, and people may die if he doesn't talk to me. But that's the move he's looking at right now. Talking to Biden right now is conceding the election if you talk to the guy.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. That's just the way I look at it. I think that's exactly what he's trying to do, trap him into. Look, he's talking to me. He's accepted the outcome of this election. And Trump's saying, no, I'm not going to talk to you. Not till it's finally all said and done. I'm not talking to you. And he's not going to use that BS excuse of 400,000 lives are maybe lost because he won't talk to me over coronavirus.
Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to take one more phone call, and then we're going to close the lines for the Lady Claire. So let's go to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, Mike, I may be beating a dead horse here, but I plowed through the Federalist Papers on the weekend
Yes.
because they're remarkable documents. And each one, the two that stood out, well, the two main authors were Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, and they both warned of domestic violence as being the source of breaking up the Union, as having the potential to do that. Abraham Lincoln himself also talked about domestic violence being the greatest threat to the Union, and he made that statement during a speech even before he was president, when he was a young lawyer.
Yes.
I think, I know Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution implies that the federal government cannot intervene in domestic violence unless the governor invites the U.S. Armed Forces into the state. However, in this case, if the state itself is a rogue state and has become somehow usurped by those enacting the domestic violence with the intent of breaking up the Union, then it seems to me there's an argument to be made there. I've also looked at a lot of the journals, the law reviews that come out of law schools, and they're all taking a new look at Article 4 and what is called the Guarantee Clause, and within that is the Domestic Violence Clause. They're saying there's a lot of power there that could be vested in the federal government that has not been recognized up until now. And one of them attributed that to the fact that the language of the time was different, and the syntax, where the object and subject were placed differently than the way we use it in modern day. So there's a lot, I think, that could be looked at there. And then also, for those who are naturalized citizens, there's a pledge that you protect the Constitution and the Union from enemies, both domestic and foreign.
Yes.
So if that oath of allegiance, and each of us said that when we pledge allegiance to the flag. I mean, everybody has an obligation. It's not simply the president or the United States. And that's the other thing about Article 4. Everywhere else in the Constitution, it states what the responsibility is and who is responsible for enforcing it. Whereas in Article 4, it states only the United States is responsible for ensuring domestic tranquility. So, there's a lot there, I think, according to the experts in some of the law reviews that I've read, there is something there that can be said. And certainly, naturalized, those who are born as American citizens may not be aware of that oath that you have to take to become a naturalized citizen. You have to pledge allegiance to the Constitution and to oppose enemies, both domestic and foreign. Now, I'm just paraphrasing because it's been a long time since I've actually had to say it or read it, but there are aspects besides simply the mechanics of the election itself that have to be looked at, the events preceding the election. All of those caravans where they brought in fake votes.
Hello, Layla. Looks like we lost her. All right. Well, that's a shame because she was on a roll there. All right. We're going to close the phone lines here so that the Lady Claire's got to turn at the microphone. And Lady Claire, take it away.
Yes. One of our good friends in the Middle East, and I use that term advisedly, Saudi Arabia. Apparently, its Aramco landmark IPO, initial public offering, is costing the kingdom billions.
Yep.
Now, this comes from someone by the name of Simon Watkins, and it's oilprice.com. It's something to take a look at. It's a very sober-sided review of things pertaining to oil. Okay, the selling, the costs, etc. And it was heralded by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, as being a showcase flotation for raising massive new capital for the kingdom and anchoring a major expansion of its international equities market. And it's proven not only to put Aramco into a debt spiral, and highlighted a myriad of problems to national investors. And now Aramco is apparently digging itself further into serious debt through bond issuances, simply to pay for the huge dividend promised by MBS that were absolutely required to persuade anyone to buy into the omni-toxic IPO. Mike?
Well, Saudi Arabia, was once a very wealthy nation on the little petrodollar oil deal they had going with the United States.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, there was this failed attempt to strangle Russia's economy with an oil price war.
Yeah.
And it turned out Russia's economy was a little more diversified and robust and resilient than expected. But Saudi Arabia really got into serious financial trouble during that time, with the price of oil down at the rock bottom. And they even had to issue government bonds for like the first time in their history.
Yeah. Yeah. And apparently they decided to go ahead with yet another oil price war at the same time as the COVID-19 pandemic was gathering speed and destroying demand for oil. And apparently Aramco's finances have suffered a massive hit. For the first half of this year, the company saw a 50% plunge in net profit. And at the beginning of this month, it reported another massive drop in profits of 44.6% for the third quarter.
That's a lot of money.
Falling to SAR 44-.21 billion, US 11.79 billion from the SAR 79.84 billion in the same period last year. In other words,
almost half.
They've lost their shirt,
Yeah,
Mike.
they've lost their little
Yes. And the hard thing is that the huge guaranteed dividend payment of US 18.75 billion per quarter, US 75 billion for a full year, will have to be paid for through budget cuts and above the US 15 billion in Aramco's annual capital spending alluded to by Aramco's chief executive officer, Amin Nasser, just after the first profit figures were unveiled. And I have to think, looking at the situation with Saudi Arabia, who in their right minds thought that this was going to work?
Well, I think it was an act of desperation. I mean, again, following that failed oil price war to crush Russia, Saudi Arabia was already in financial trouble.
Yeah.
And we know they're in such financial straits. Crown Prince bin Salman, remember all those family members he locked up and held for ransom, literally, to try and bring more money into the government coffers.
Yeah.
So I would say that probably this IPO was another act of desperation. And apparently the due diligence was not really done.
No.
And they're in a real mess.
Yeah. I don't think the Crown Prince is someone who likes the word no much. Call me silly.
Doesn't sound like it.
Call me silly.
Yep.
And this is a time, I mean, if social services get cut, we are seeing unheard of expressions of anger getting expressed at Saudi leadership, and how bad it is for the rank and file lunch bucket Saudis right now. Now, here is an interesting fact about Saudi Arabia from last year. Although the government is loath to release statistics, it is estimated that around more than 20% or more than 34 million.
Now, that's 20% of the the 34 million.
More of the 34 million Saudi citizens live in poverty.
Okay.
Many of them are women or members of female-headed households. Now, Mike, that's a huge number
It
for
is.
a government structure
Yes.
living with such opulent wealth and such very public opulent wealth.
Yes.
Now, coupled with Saudi intransigence at the human rights debacle they have created in Yemen, these folks could well be seen as some of the most tone-deaf leadership of the 21st century.
Well,
If
it's
there
one of
was
the
a
reasons we gave up
prize for that.
hereditary rule in
Yeah.
other countries
Mhm.
here.
Yeah. And I have to wonder how long MBS can stay in power, continuing to make these decisions?
Well, there's the rest of the royal family would like him out of there. He's still not quite officially the ruler of Saudi Arabia because King Salman is still alive, although not really functioning.
Not well.
He and Joe Biden, can get together on that one.
Oh boy.
And but I would say that we're going to see some rivalry within the family, if not an outright revolution by the Saudi people. Okay, we're going to take a break here for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We are living in dangerous days, and I am frightened by what you say. It chills right to the core. This talk of holy war.
And welcome back to our show here. And we have the lovely Lady Claire here, who's still talking about Saudi Arabia. If you care to follow up.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I noticed that a Saudi woman did have the opportunity to defend herself in court, closed, of course, to reporters and outsiders. Faint and shaky, Lujan al-Hathloul transferred to a Saudi terrorism court. Now, this gal's alleged crime, she drove in Saudi Arabia just weeks before MBS decreed that it was legal for women to drive on their own. Now, what's happening, Mike, is the Saudi courts are using these terror courts to crack down on political prisoners, as is obviously the case here. The detention of women's activists has cast a spotlight on the human rights record of the kingdom, which of course has also faced a lot of global criticism over the 2018 assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in its Istanbul consulate. Now, Hathloul began a hunger strike in prison on 26 October to demand regular contacts with her family, which has been forbidden. And Amnesty International said on Wednesday that Hathloul has ended the strike 2 weeks later. She was being awakened by guards every 2 hours, day and night, as a brutal tactic to break her, Amnesty said on Twitter. Yet she is far from broken. I have a note to self on that last one. Between what happens to Saudi women and any lack of religious freedom and the general suppression of the Saudi people, Mike, call me silly. I don't think Saudi Arabia is going to be on my bucket list anytime soon.
Well, if it was, it would be the last entry.
Yeah. And but there is a very interesting meeting that happened last Sunday between Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Israel's Bibi Netanyahu. Now, what it was essentially was a message to Joe Biden that the two countries are going to kind of begin the dance, if you will, of normalized relationship between them. But neither Prince bin Salman nor Netanyahu really got what they wanted. Now, this article comes from antiwar.com, which again, it's a very sober-sided, intelligently written aggregate site and one that I go to frequently. And what the White House was hoping for, and Pompeo and Netanyahu reportedly pushed the crown prince to come out in the open and make much more significant and symbolic gestures in the direction of Israel.
Well, I have to look at the coincidence of the timing of this meeting,
Yeah.
And the assassination of Iran's top nuclear
yes,
scientist,
of course.
and that I would suspect
Yeah.
that at least part of this discussion was whether Israel could count on Saudi Arabia's assistance in the event of an attack on Iran.
Yeah. And they explained to him that once Biden becomes the 46th president, if that happens, it will be much more difficult to promote bilateral relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, because any move would likely be conditioned on being part of a larger deal that would include the Palestinians. But Prince bin Salman fears that moving too fast may backfire, especially domestically with Saudis. I can understand why that might happen. I mean,
Yes.
they're a put upon, oppressed people. And the other thing is his reticence to legitimize his relationships with Israel because of his dad. Now, Israeli and American intelligence resources who are familiar with the thinking in the royal household told the Middle East Eye that as long as 85-year-old King Salman is alive, he will continue to support the Palestinian cause and try to restrain his capricious son. Good luck on that.
Yep.
We don't know what the senior prince's medical condition is, except it's
Meaning
not
the king.
great.
No, well, yeah.
Yeah.
We know he's mentally deteriorating.
Yeah.
He can wrap his own Christmas presents and still be surprised on Christmas morning.
I didn't realize
Yes.
the Muslim faith celebrated Christmas,
Well,
but
okay.
okay. Yeah. A piece of positive news: Israel has freed Maher al-Akras after a 103-day hunger strike. And he is a dad of 6 kids. He refused all food and drink to protest Israel's administrative detention.
I'm amazed he's still alive after.
And now it's interesting, in Israel, they can administratively detain any Palestinian for any period of time without charging them.
Well, yes.
Where does that come into our legal system? Guantanamo.
Yes.
How many people there have been held indefinitely without charge? And Mike, you and I have talked about this
Yes, we
privately.
have.
And it's because many times waterboarding wasn't the worst thing that was
No,
done.
it wasn't. I mean, there's
Yeah.
one prisoner in Guantanamo. The
Yeah.
military tribunal declared him innocent. They still will not release him.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming up here on another break for commercials. So stay tuned, and we'll be back with more international news or national news or who knows what all else from the lovely Lady Claire. So stay tuned.
All right.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Extend your life with Extendovite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, bilberry, hawthorn, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Each herb was chosen for their abilities to help improve irregular heartbeats, chest pain, lower cholesterol, as well as normalize blood pressure and clean and strengthen arteries, plus much, much more. Doctors have taken people off of some or all of their pills just because they believe their patients got better while taking Extendovite. Get the dependability of Extendovite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. I was right 30 years ago in warning the world about threatening lab virus outbreaks, AIDS, and Ebola. I was right 20 years ago when FBI Director Robert Mueller made me a suspect in the anthrax mailings because I warned the Bureau before the CIA's biocrime and Cipro sales psyops happened. I was right about COVID-19 being an AIDS-laced mutagen planned to resurge this fall to excuse officials' profitable depopulation globalization agendas. And I was right about the only safeguards being antioxidants and holy spiritual sustenance. Vitamin C, D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxygen, and oxysilver especially transmits the frequency resonance to neutralize the expanded function bioweapon. Oxysilver is a double superconductor of the healing power of love. It is the first nutraceutical invented to amplify prayer power and the faithful, loving intention of your heart. Buy, try, and stockpile Oxysilver through HealthyWorldStore.com.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Corporations, Wall Street and the banks rule our politicians. They don't deserve our thanks, then they tell us the banks are too big to fail, when the banksters all need to be in jail.
Okay, welcome back to our show here. And Claire, you've got another story for us.
Yes. It comes from Zero Hedge. And again, this is a very intelligent and sober-sided blog, and I commend the people who read here to go on over. But this is about Joe Biden and the return of the Council on Foreign Relations, submitted by Swiss Policy Research. And they say that a Joe Biden presidency, again, if it does happen, simply means a return to normality because it means a return of the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. Now, in 2008, Barack Obama received the names of his entire future cabinet 1 month prior to his election by CFR senior fellow and Citigroup banker Michael Froman, as WikiLeaks email later revealed. Then the key posts in Obama's cabinet were filled almost exclusively by CFR members, as was the case in most cabinets since World War II. To be sure, Obama's 2008 Republican opponent, the late John McCain, was also a CFR member. Michael Froman later negotiated the TPP and the TTIP international trade agreements before returning to the CFR as a distinguished fellow. In 2017, the CFR nightmare, Donald Trump, immediately canceled these trade agreements because he viewed them as detrimental to U.S. domestic industry.
And he was right about that.
Oh, heck yes. Which allowed China to conclude its own recently, announcing RCEP free trade area, encompassing 14 countries and a third of the global trade. Trump also canceled other CFR achievements like the multinational Iran nuclear deal and the UN climate and migration agreements, and he tried, but largely has failed to withdraw U.S. troops from East Asia, Central Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, thus seriously endangering the global U.S. empire built over decades by the CFR and its 5,000 elite members.
This is obviously a puff piece for the CFR.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, and it might have gone marvelously well for the members, but real working Americans might not so wonderfully.
No, it really didn't. None of this works for the working Americans.
Yeah.
It's all about globalism and empire.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of former President Obama, Obama is now blaming Trump. Oh, I love the smell of hypocrisy in the morning for Obama's own border cages.
Yes.
Now, this comes to us from Steve Watson via Summit News. Now, former President Obama took a shot at President Trump in an interview Wednesday, blaming him for border cages that were actually instituted and used under the former president's administration. Now, Obama was decrying the level of support that Trump received from Hispanic voters during the election campaign. And he made the observation, but there's a lot of evangelical Hispanics who, the fact that Trump says racist things about Mexicans, Obama said during the interview with the Breakfast Club radio show, or puts detainees, undocumented workers in cages, they think that's less important than the fact, he supports their views on gay marriage and abortion, right? Obama claimed. Oh, it's more than a tad ironic that Obama begins by talking about how metropolitan elites can be out of touch with the rest of America.
That's been
and then
the
go
case for a long time.
Immediately on to pigeonhole Hispanic voters as only caring about abortion, like single issue voters. And are Hispanic voters incapable of caring about economic issues or crime just because they're Hispanic? But that isn't apparently, Mike, the most egregious aspect of his comments, however, given that he completely ignores the fact that for many years, the so-called cages were used by the Department of Homeland Security under the Obama administration. Now, it was in 2014, 2 years before Trump was elected, that the cages story reached its peak with overcrowded and squalling conditions at holding facilities making headlines. While leftists pretty much ignored the story while Obama was in the White House, it suddenly became an issue when Trump was in the Oval Office. And indeed, the very same photos from 2014 were recycled and presented as though they were taken during Trump's tenure. Mike, you have to love just how dirty the left fights.
Well, they fight dirty. I don't love it.
24/7.
I don't, I don't believe in fighting dirty.
No, I hear you, but
Yeah.
they never stop.
Okay,
They
let's
never stop.
all right, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines here. And Layla, if you want to call back in, We'll let you finish what it was that you were saying before you got cut off here. So once again, area code 512-248-8252. And while we're waiting for callers, please give us another story.
Yes, apparently Illinois Senators Durbin and Duckworth are among those who are could be called 21st century book burners and happy with big tech censorship.
Yes.
Now, this comes to us from Mark Glennon of WirePoints. Now, the statement he makes at the beginning of this article is very powerful and I think very true. Democracy is subverted when the free exchange of information and ideas and opinions gets suppressed.
Yes.
Now, that subversion is now reality in America and much of the world, thanks primarily to censorship by big technology platforms and our unapologetically dishonest and biased national media. Now, last week, the Judiciary Committee of the United States Senate held hearings on one of those causes, big tech censorship. Now, if you are unaware of how pernicious and common that censorship has become, particularly by Twitter and Facebook, which have become the fifth estate of
Yes.
surveillance for the U.S. government,
Very much.
you are dangerously uninformed. Now, comedian Bill Maher, hardly a right-winger, said it correctly. The censorship is illegal, and I'm going to paraphrase this, messed up.
Yes.
But how did Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, a Judiciary Committee member, preface his comments? He says, "It's a big waste of time and a political stunt. I think there are more important and timely questions, but we are trying to determine whether or not the social media instruments of America are fair to the Republican Party."
Well, they're certainly not
Really?
fair to ordinary citizens.
So what's more important, national security, the pandemic, and the possibility that Trump would refuse to leave when the election is certified, Durbin said. No, Senator Durbin. The Judiciary Committee is the top legislative oversight body on the rule of law that is theoretically supposed to be the world's leading democracy. National security and coronavirus are not within the committee's purview. And a speculative case on presidential transition is premature for a hearing. What is within its jurisdiction and should be top priorities are freedom of expression and the hotly debated Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which gives big tech immunity and the censorship.
The censorship, yes.
Censorship. Now, as for the censorship, Durbin once more. No, Senator Durbin, the entire fabric of America's republic is at stake and under siege here, and that cannot possibly be taken for granted. The degree to which big tech can turn election results on their head with a slight massage of an algorithm, as we have seen with the Dominion voting systems, is nothing at which to sneer. And thinking Americans understand with absolute clarity that this last election was more crooked than is a dog's hind legs. And Senators Duckworth and Durbin, folks, that matters.
Yes, absolutely.
That
it does.
matters.
Now, you mentioned book burning before, and of course, everybody looks at the book burning by the Nazis.
Mhm.
And what's really worth looking at right now is that the vast majority of books that were burned by the Nazis were science books that didn't align with German government or Nazi government policy.
Right.
And we're seeing a repeat of that
Mhm.
with all of this censorship and cyber burning
Mhm.
of anything that does not line up with the government's COVID-19 narrative.
Right.
So we're, it's like, did we learn nothing from World War II?
I would like to hope that we did, but
Apparently not.
looking at this cycle, Mike, I don't think so. And
Nope.
speaking of COVID, a doctor who demanded mandatory mask law was pictured partying maskless on a boat surrounded by, wait for it, bikini-clad women. Now, this comes to us from Paul Joseph Watkins via Summit News.
Watson,
thank you. The world's so-called hottest doctor has repeatedly called for mandatory mask laws and social distancing, and was just pictured maskless partying on a boat in Miami while surrounded by, shall we say, scantily clad ladies. Mikhail Warshawski, known as Dr. Mike Online, completely contradicted his own advice by throwing a super spreader 31st birthday party for himself on November 12th. And folks, have you noticed this? That for the elite and the moneyed, these dictates are always for the other guys, the non-elites, the so-called deplorables or hillbillies, and never for themselves. This is a very interesting bit of hypocrisy, which just seems to go with the condition of having money.
Or power.
Yeah.
It's the do as I say, don't do as I do. And, look at all the people like Nancy Pelosi who are out there just openly caught, ignoring all of these COVID lockdown and mask orders.
And blaming the operator?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that woman had to move out of the state.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
All righty, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Lauren in Ohio. Aloha, Lauren. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. I was just commenting about what Layla was saying. God bless her. I love what she talks about most times, but I don't think she understands America. When you look at the sovereignty of this country, God made the men made a club, that club, body of negative law to limit the maids and the butlers of the club. That's what the Constitution does. It binds them. It does not tell us what we can and cannot do. We are the free kings. And it's the same thing with the states. The one that creates is the one that has the right to control. Men created the counties. The counties created the states. The states created the federal government. You can't have the creation come in and take control of the created, even for the good of the group. And that's the part she's not understanding, and a lot of people don't understand. As Christians, we understand that we have a master. He created us. We are obliged to obey him, have no other gods before him, and that we'll be judged, and he is a jealous God. Now, we have a choice, either serve him or serve men through a worldly government, and you have a choice to do that. That's the difference between a U.S. citizen and a non-citizen national. Look at a passport application. U.S. passports are given to two classes. U.S. citizen, that's the corporate chattel, the 14th Amendment, little c citizen, slave of the government by contract, or non-citizen nationals. That means men born in the country, in one of the several states, and understanding that God created the man. And so he has and retains all of his rights given by God and protected by the Constitution. Where that 14th Amendment citizen, you only have the rights and privileges that are given to little c citizens, given to the slaves. So the thing that I'm trying to make sure people understand is we have all the power. It's not that our rights have been taken from us. It's that we've been distracted and forgotten that they were where they are, which are still in place. The organic America is still in place. Just because they disrespect and ignore the Constitution, commit all these crimes. I mean, Hillary Clinton and 30,000 emails, bleach, bit, and a hammer. She admits it publicly, and nothing happens. Same thing with all these things. If I'm finally, tired of, if they want to do the game, but you're not going to do it with my money. You're not going to take my time and attention. Turn that boob tube off. Listen to Republic. Learn what's going on. Keep your money in your pocket. Quit giving them money you don't owe them. Learn the truth. WeissParis.com. It's all through the IRS and Social Security. Go to the resource section. It all goes through tax court. All you're doing is giving them a notification of who you are. You don't have to give them the fruit of your labor, but most people do because they're ignorant. And even if they're not ignorant, they're too scared to act on the truth. So again, this is my fault, my fix. It's all in our power. They can't do anything without our consent, without our money, and without access to our children. That's why they make it so clear. Hitler said, got to get those kids by 5. That's what Hitler Jugend is. That's what the Mao brigades are. It's them with your children. You're lucky that the schools are closed. I'm glad. Good. Spend some time with your children. Get to know who they are. Put a book in front of them. Put a map.
Yeah.
They should at least know where the places they're bombing, where are the people that you're killing from? Should you know something about them if you're going to, stomp on them and take their stuff? This is just straight up theft. They've been using us, and it's been fair. So at this point, I just want Layla to understand, God bless her, and I appreciate her heart. But we don't get to do things so that we can fix it. The fix is we obey God, we walk in his way, we keep our money in our pockets, don't pay for our own destruction, keep your children in your homes or handle their education so they actually get an education, boycott big business, quit giving all these big businesses your money. Shop locally, shop with RBN, shop with, and stop obeying illegitimate authority. Wear your mask. God says breathe, men say don't. Really? You're going to go obey the men? God says eat real food. They say here GMO's good enough for you. Here, have some fluorine and bromine in your food and your water. This is us doing this to ourselves. So we can stop at any time. I really am so excited to have you guys on the mainland. I really would love to meet you sometime. I'm in the next state over, but
Okay.
I appreciate everything you're doing. I'll let you go. I just wanted her to understand. I mean, I understand her heart, but that whole thing of, you want to do good for people, so you take their rights away. I mean, you could be really safe if they never let you out of a cage, but Jeffrey Epstein wasn't safe in jail, was he?
Well, I'm not. I think Epstein is actually still alive somewhere because he had the goods on too many people.
Well, so do I. But you know how you go to jail, you can get all the drugs, all the sex, all the whatever you want in there, cell phone, whatever you want. So you're not really safe anywhere. So let's just stick with freedom, because that's what God gave us, a right to liberty and to choose how we walk through this experience in the flesh, and stop with this somehow or another, these Satanist pedophiles. I mean, it's public now. Hunter Biden knocking the living daylights out of 10-year-old girls, sexually raping and torturing babies.
Lauren,
and they're going to bring him out on stage.
Lauren, I'm sorry. I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
Is your property a financial burden and causing you grief? Have you tried to sell but can't find buyers? Or are you just too busy to sell your property? Don't worry, we have the right solution for you. We buy properties as is, with cash, close in 30 days, and pay all closing costs. Our service is ideal for property owners who are in pre-foreclosure, have high-end repair costs, experiencing financial hardship, going through costly divorces, are relocating, need cash for retirement, suffering family loss, or have tax liens. Whatever your situation may be, we can help you sell your property and get the money you need. If you own a single-family home or multiple family units, call us for a free consultation at 888-910-1037. That's 888-910-1037. Or visit our website at cashingproperty.com. That's cashingproperty.com. Sell your property fast and leave all your worries behind.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Extendovite really works. Here are some reviews from Amazon.com. Nikki, great product. Have to try it for a few months to see results. After taking Extendovite for about 6 months, I have noticed improvement on the numbness of my hands and wrists from carpal tunnel. I will continue to buy the product. Ken Peaks, 5 out of 5 stars. Works as advertised. This formula is very powerful. Be careful to follow directions. I am feeling much better. My heart rate and blood pressure has stabilized and my lower edema has reduced. Lower leg pain due to blood clots has disappeared. Thank you. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Please view, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stop terrorism. Please contact us if you or anyone you know who wants to be on our show at thetruthpharmacy@gmail.com. Keep it real. take the red pill.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
Welcome back to our show. Last segment on this Powhounder Friday here, and we're going to go back to the phones to Dr. Kelly. Hello, Dr. Kelly. What's on your mind?
I'm thankful for Lady Claire and the clarity, and I'm grateful for this platform. And I'm disappointed also in the telephone in listen line for the live stream is out of order apparently, and that's really affecting a lot of folks that may be visually impaired or non-computer users. And I also found a bunch of treasures at the local Savers thrift store, and the Book of Common Prayer, the most beautiful thing says that the Christian men's good, which are not common. The riches and goods of Christians are not common, as touching the right, title, and possession of the same. As certain Anabaptists do falsely boast, notwithstanding, every man ought of such things as he possesseth liberally to give alms to the poor according to his ability. And there are a whole bunch of good treasures in here. Thank you again for your work and all these years and pointing out the good news. God bless you, Lady Clarity.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for the phone call and for the kind words. And do you have us another story for the rest of the show here?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
This is posted, authored by Daisy Luther. You know how there are certain people who write in the blogosphere, and I say, please pay attention to what this guy or this lady is writing. Daisy Luther is one lady to whom I would encourage you to pay attention.
Okay, she's over at the Organic Prepper.
Yeah. And the article is titled, Snitch Giving. Americans are being urged to report families gathering for the holidays. And she sort of sets out this scenario. Imagine you're sitting around the table with your family, inhaling the aroma as Grandpa carves the turkey, and there's a knock at the door. Is it a late guest, a neighbor dropping by? No. It's a health official or the police there to quell your gathering because someone snitched on you for making the decision to spend time with the people you love.
And it really did happen this last Thanksgiving, and the way things are going, it looks like it's going to happen again on Christmas.
Yeah. It sounds dystopian, or something like a country under enemy rule, but it's right here in the United States of America where officials are urging people to rat out their neighbors for having more visitors on Thanksgiving than they see fit.
Well, Nazi Germany did exactly the same thing, encouraging their citizens to spy on each other and report un-Nazi-like behavior.
Yeah. And that's another thing the article mentions. Let's take it up a notch while watching our neighbors get turned into brown shirts for the greater good. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And apparently a lot of people are willing to snitch on their neighbors. And don't fool yourself for a second in thinking your neighbors wouldn't do such a thing, because there was a Rasmussen poll, and a third of the people who took it would rat out the folks next door in a heartbeat.
Well, that says something dark about the American psyche.
Ouch.
Okay, there's the music.
Yes.
It's time for us to get out of here. Have a really good weekend. Have a safe weekend. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you.
Yes.
Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting and whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It's never been more important. We'll see you on Monday. Aloha, America.